I bet you didn't know. You walk into a room you've never been in before. A conversation starts, completely ordinary, and somewhere in the middle of it, a strange certainty hits you. You've done this exact thing before. Same words, same lighting, same feeling in your chest. You know, logically, that this is impossible. You've never stood here, never had this conversation, never lived this exact moment. And yet, the sensation is undeniable. For 2 or 3 seconds, your brain insists you are remembering something that hasn't actually happened. This is déjà vu. And the most unsettling part isn't the feeling itself. It's what neuroscientists now believe is actually happening behind it. Your brain may be catching itself in the middle of making a mistake, and what you're experiencing is the error message. For most of the 20th century, déjà vu was treated as a curiosity, something too strange and too fleeting to study seriously. It happens to roughly 2/3 of people at some point in their lives, usually in young adulthood, then becomes rarer with age. That alone should have been a clue. If déjà vu were simply mystical or meaningless, why would it follow such a specific, measurable pattern? The breakthrough came from an unexpected place: epilepsy research. Neurologist Wilder Penfield, operating on patients with epilepsy in the 1950s, discovered that directly stimulating a specific region of the brain, the medial temporal lobe, could trigger an intense and immediate sensation of déjà vu in patients who were fully awake and conscious during surgery. This told researchers something critical. Déjà vu wasn't some abstract philosophical glitch. It had a physical address in the brain, and that address belonged to the same region responsible for memory formation and retrieval. So what region is this exactly? And why would triggering it produce a false sense of familiarity? The hippocampus and the surrounding medial temporal lobe act as your brain's memory checking system. Every moment you experience gets quickly compared against your existing memories to determine whether it's new or familiar. Most of the time, this system works seamlessly and invisibly. You don't consciously notice your brain running a background check on every doorway you walk through. But neuroscientist Akira O'Connor at the University of St. Andrews has proposed something fascinating. Déjà vu might actually be your brain's frontal regions catching an error in that memory checking system and correcting for it in real time. Here's the key insight. In O'Connor's research, using brain imaging on people experiencing artificially induced déjà vu-like sensations through hypnosis, the frontal cortex, the region associated with decision-making and conflict resolution, lit up specifically when participants reported the sensation. This suggests déjà vu isn't your memory system malfunctioning. It's the opposite. It's your memory checking system working correctly, flagging a false memory signal and overriding it before you actually believe you've lived through this exact moment before. In other words, déjà vu may be evidence that your memory system is healthy, not glitching. This reframes the entire experience. Your hippocampus, for some reason, briefly signals, "This is familiar," likely because some small fragment of the current scene, an angle of light, a tone of voice, a spatial layout, closely resembles a memory fragment you've genuinely encountered before, even if you can't consciously place it. Cognitive scientist Anne Cleary at Colorado State University has run experiments using virtual reality to test this exact idea. She designed spatially similar but objectively different scenes, like 2 rooms with the same furniture layout but different decor, and found that participants experienced déjà vu significantly more often when navigating spaces that subtly echoed a layout they'd seen before, without consciously recognizing the connection. This means your brain isn't hallucinating an entire false memory out of nowhere. It's detecting a partial, structural similarity to something real and briefly mistaking that resemblance for a full memory match. Your frontal cortex then steps in almost instantly, checks the actual details, realizes the current moment doesn't truly correspond to anything you've previously experienced, and corrects course. The déjà vu sensation you feel is essentially the brief overlap between the false alarm and the correction. This also explains why déjà vu fades with age. Cleary and other researchers point out that the brain's memory-checking circuitry, particularly in the frontal regions responsible for catching these errors, tends to become less efficient as we get older. Younger brains, still calibrating an enormous and rapidly growing memory database, may simply generate more of these false familiarity signals and catch them more actively, producing more frequent déjà vu. As the system matures and memory pathways become more set, both the false alarms and the corrective process slow down. There's also a clinical flip side worth understanding because it reveals just how meaningful this error correction process really is. In certain forms of temporal lobe epilepsy, patients experience déjà vu far more intensely and frequently, sometimes as a warning sign immediately preceding a seizure. In these cases, the same medial temporal lobe region becomes hyperactive, firing false familiarity signals without the healthy correction process keeping pace. The sensation isn't a brief 2-second blip, it can become overwhelming, prolonged, and disconnected from reality. This clinical extreme is, in a strange way, reassuring for the rest of us. It shows what happens when the system that produces ordinary déjà vu loses its checks and balances. Your everyday déjà vu, brief and quickly resolved, is the sound of those checks and balances functioning exactly as intended. So the next time déjà vu hits you, standing in a room you've truly never visited, listening to a conversation you've truly never had, you're not glimpsing a parallel life or a memory leaking in from somewhere impossible. You're watching your own mind for a fraction of a second, catch itself almost making a mistake, and quietly fix it before you even notice there was an error to correct. It isn't a flaw in your memory. It's proof that the system meant to protect you from believing the wrong things about your own past is doing exactly the job it was built to do. If you learned something new, be sure to like and follow for more facts and stories.